I'm exhausted.
I was going to say, as somebody who at the time of recording, I just got back yesterday from our first out of state event that we did, which was Diabetes Legends Basketball Clinic. And I got to say, it sounds really refreshing because I also did not really know what that event was until like the day before. So I love that yours started as a book launch and now has evolved. You're like, yes, this is a conference. Yes, this is something we can do again, because I want to make sure. I'm so fortunate. Our event was amazing, incredible. Like I was
well,
not
take
just
a
for
second
me.
because I'm going to run this on my show too. So take a second and tell me what that was all about.
So let's talk about it. So you and I were talking before we started recording. There's very few peak days with diabetes that you are prescribed. If you're lucky, you go to diabetes camp. You maybe go to a conference like we're talking about, or either a JDRF Type 1 Nation or a Connected in Motion if you're very connected. But most of the time, those are either virtual or they're bigger conferences, and they're not as just like a fun day. Or for in camps, they may be out of state or they may be cost prohibitive in some cases. And so I was like, I love basketball. That's what I cared about when I was diagnosed. Can I still do this? And I found out that I could. And so what do I know best? Basketball camp. I'm a kid that went to camp, whether I had diabetes or not. I went to basketball camp. So Diabetes Legends Basketball Clinic was born. And it's basically a 2-hour basketball clinic with amazing coaches. We had 2 amazing med staff. We had the low blood sugar station. We had everybody's devices ready to go. We come in, you check your kid in, they go play basketball for 2 hours. And then we did a live podcast with a diabetes legend, Gary Forbes, who is one of 3 people in the history of the world to play in the NBA with diabetes. And those kids got to do it. And I tell you what, Stacey, I didn't really know what it was until we got to Denver on Friday and we're setting it up. I'm like, oh, this is something we can do over and over again. And so for you to be doing 4 just a year and a half really after you did your first one, first of all, I understand what you mean. You're tired. Like that is a huge expanse, and you are one person. I know. Congratulations. I guess this is big for your listeners. You've hired like a part-time staff member to help you with coordinate some things. But
it's amazing.
You could look from the outside. Like I'm sure even people in Dallas are like, oh, Mom's Night Out, diabetes for kids with diabetes. This must be a big organization. This must be a big operation. No, it's one person who had this idea and brought it to life. And now it's it's getting momentum, thankfully. And I think it really does meet that need like we were talking about. And I think that's such a huge part of my passion for creators is being the change. You are making something that would have benefited you as Benny was growing up, meeting other moms, and you took those insights that you've learned from all of your work over the years in the diabetes community and created something. Yeah. And that's me too. I realized, what would have really helped 16-year-old Rob to know that I could go listen to a live podcast with an NBA player, or if I was younger and had diabetes, go make a friend with diabetes at basketball camp. One of my friends who was my college roommate was in the area in Denver and was able to stop by the clinic. And he was just like, dude, all these kids have diabetes. And I was like, yeah, there's 40 kids running around the gym. They all have diabetes. They all have different devices on. They're all talking about it. I think it was good for the parents to see as well, because probably 12 of the, 40 kids came out of camp and checked their blood sugar or got a juice box or a Capri Sun and then checked themselves back in. So it was really normalizing just taking a break, which is, often not the case. And so, I am still riding that high from the weekend. And, but I think even for our staff who don't have diabetes, the guys who are running the basketball side of the clinic, they're like, hey man, we do clinics all the time. And today was really special because there's something bigger. You're opening up a world of possibilities for a kid. And when they see somebody like Gary and they see other friends, older kids, younger kids who are out there with them, making friends with diabetes. And I think it comes back to what you were talking about making friends and acquaintances in the Mom's Night Out group with someone who is going through the exact same thing that you are, normalizes it. And I think there's also research now that clinically supports better outcomes when you have a friend with diabetes, and when you're involved in diabetes, like blogs and social media and community, it really reinforces the importance of that. And so I honestly, I'm grateful for the sponsorships that we were able to get. That allows us to do this. And I was looking at it, I was like, man, I don't know if I could spend better time than to make 35 kids or 40 kids this day on a Saturday in September. That was more impactful to me than, hundreds of podcasts over the years, I felt. But it was cool because it evolved, and it was like, okay, well, what can we do? We challenged ourselves to do these events, and now I think we found one, and
That's cool.
I'm excited to do more.
Yeah, with basketball, it's funny too. Benny played every sport for 3 seconds, right? As soon as we would get used to it, he would switch. And basketball was the one, sorry, I hated basketball because first of all, Benny is not built for basketball. He found his love in wrestling. So you can tell different body type.
He's a big guy.
Big dude. But and now powerlifting. So totally different set of issues. But he was low all the time. I don't know how you play basketball with type 1 diabetes. And obviously you do. But
You do.
like, so what were the kids like? What were the tips that you gave the kids?
So I was intentionally kind of hands off of like giving the advice because everybody's is so different. So what I would say in the podcast, Gary and I kind of talked about managing blood sugars playing basketball. My problem is the opposite. I go really high.
Wow.
Because I've learned about myself when I really like something and I really care about it, which I do for basketball even now for some reason. You get stressed, you get adrenalized, then I get excited and my blood sugar goes up, my insulin resistance goes up for 2 hours. And then I crash because my body's been exercising. I've been getting, I've been hydrating, and that insulin that's on board finally is able to get absorbed, and I crash afterwards. So I think just to normalize that, I don't have the secret sauce to keep a flat chart throughout this, basketball practices and games was also refreshing for some of the parents to feel, because I think you start to feel a little bit guilty. You're like, you're doing something wrong. And the reality is like everybody responds to exercise a little bit differently, and you just got to be as prepared as you can.
Yeah. I will never forget. We had just gotten a continuous glucose monitor around the time that Benny started playing basketball. So he must have been about 9 years old, and we didn't have Share, but because it didn't exist yet, but I was sitting in the stands with this receiver going, this is amazing. And then realizing like, oh my God, this kid is going low all the time. It was just a funny mishmash of, confluence of events. It's like he started playing basketball, we got a CGM, and he was always low.
Well, we had a couple kids who were going low during the camp. They came out. One of them had to have more juice boxes than he was used to. But right as soon as they felt good again, they popped right back into the drills.
Oh, they make it work.
And they made it work.
They make it work.
And that was a big learning for me too, because I think you talked about it. There is no singular experience as a parent that doesn't translate exactly to the patient experience. And I realized that there really is no detail too small when you're dealing with kids with diabetes to help make the parents as at ease as possible, because they juggle a lot all the time, and I think they also know their kids, and they know they know what they need, and I wanted to give them at least like leeway to do that, but also make sure that if they wanted to completely get hands off and like take a breather and maybe have a sandwich, that they could do that for the 2 hours that we were.